All right, we are back with another episode of App Stories. This episode is brought to you by Instabug, Revenue Cat, Pillow, and SourceGraph. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Federico Viticci. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm doing really well. You know what? We're gonna talk about apps today. We've been talking so much about OSs for weeks now that it's time to get back to apps. And so I suggested to you, why don't we do an app grab bag? We haven't done this in a while. We've done them in the past, but we just kind of went through our phones and iPads and Macs and figured out a few apps that we want to share with people that we maybe haven't written about a lot. A lot of these have made appearances in things like Club Mac Stories in our app debuts. I know that these apps have all been there at one time or another, but we haven't necessarily written a full review on them. So I thought we would, it's a good time to make some suggestions and some recommendations to folks.
Yeah, I mean, the show is called App Stories after all. So
After all, exactly.
we got to talk about apps, and I'm sure we will. We also have some system apps to talk about this summer with iOS and iPadOS 16 and macOS Ventura. There's a few apps to talk about, but for now, we're going to talk about third-party apps. And I prepared a couple for you, John.
Okay.
One you've heard before, and the other one, I don't think so. So I'll
No,
start.
it's a surprise. That one's a surprise. I'm looking forward to hearing more about it.
So I'll start with the familiar one, which is Matter, the Read Later app, not the upcoming home standard wireless protocol for home accessories. Matter, the Read Later app that came out last year in 2021 after a long beta period. And I want to mention this because Matter was recently updated to version 2.0, which I believe they codenamed Nucleus, I think.
I think that's right.
Yeah. So what's fascinating about Matter is that it's part of this new generation of read later services and read later companies that are trying to modernize and reinvent how we can consume, if you will, articles on the web by saving them, obviously, by reading them in a clutter-free interface. Again, obviously, this is nothing new. But this new generation of companies, they're doing a few different things in terms of sort of retaining information as you read. Highlights being one of the popular features again. Obviously, the idea of highlighting what you're reading isn't necessarily new, but it's the kind of functionality that has long been on the back burner for a lot of companies. But it's not just about saving those highlights. It's also about integrating those highlights and connecting them to other apps that you may be using. Essentially, what I mean is this new generation of read later apps, they integrate with note-taking apps like Notion and Obsidian and Rome Research, like all this modern crop of, personal knowledge management apps and that kind of stuff.
Right.
Matter does all of this. But in addition to this, it also has this very unique feature that I haven't seen. Well, I've seen it elsewhere, but I haven't seen it done this well, which is the ability to listen to articles instead of reading them. And the idea, so Pocket had this before. Pocket had a text-to-speech functionality years ago. What I prefer about Matter is that they're using this more modern text-to-speech engine that makes these articles spoken aloud by a machine, because it's literally like a Siri-like voice, but it sounds better than any other text-to-speech feature I tried in similar apps and services in the past. It really sounds great. It sounds so good that a few months ago on the Automation Academy for Club Mac Stories Plus and Premier members, I shared this advanced automation called Matter Pod, which essentially uses the Matter API to create a private podcast feed for you that's based on the articles in your queue. So it's really well done. But in Matter 1.0, another feature that was present in the original version of the app was the social integration. Mm-hmm. The idea was that you could also follow other people on Matter and integrate with Twitter, do the usual stuff, and basically have your profile be a public thing where you could recommend articles and browse articles recommended by others. Now, these social features, they always get sort of layered on top of an existing product just because, hey, the investors told us that we got to have some social component. And that was the feeling that I got with Matter 1.0. Matter is a VC-backed startup. And, it had that sort of feel of like, oh, yeah, it's a read later app. And eventually they were convinced to also have a social component. Now, what's unusual about this is that for version 2.0, the creators of Matter actually went out in public and said, we hear you. You hate the social stuff.
Right.
So we're just going to get rid of it. And we're going to simplify the product instead of doubling down on the social stuff, which is usually what happens with these kind of startups that get money from investors. They literally said, we believe that the vision for Matter is to make you a better reader and to help you reading more and, remember more of what you read. And as such, we heard your feedback and we also agree that the social features were a distraction from the core Matter experience. And so with version 2, which is what I'm recommending today, they completely got rid of it. Like all the social stuff is gone. Now, obviously, Matter is still, and needs to be a disclaimer up front, it's still a free service made by a startup that so far has shown no plans to monetize what they're doing. So, take this recommendation with the usual grain of salt that comes with startups based in Silicon Valley that have, venture capitalist money. I have no idea how they're going to make money. If they want to make money, I assume they want to make money at some point, but that I don't know. What I know for now is that looking at the iPhone and iPad app for Matter 2.0, it is a really, really well done read later client. And what I especially like about this update is that they simplified a lot of things. Now, the app is just organized in 3 separate sections. You have your library, your inbox, because you can also decide to receive newsletters at a special Matter email address, and staff picks. These are recommendations from the Matter team for articles, long form stuff found around the web. And it's a pretty diverse and eclectic mix of articles, I think.
Yeah, I think the mix has gotten better than it was during the early days.
Yeah, I agree. But what I especially want to point out is the library, the main section of the app that has this reminders-like design for your archived stories, your news stories, your highlights. It's really nicely done, and I kind of wonder if maybe down the road they're going to add more of these sections in the main library page.
This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Instabug. Building mobile apps presents some challenges, and bugs, crashes, and performance issues can be a nightmare for developers. But what if you could not only detect all of those issues, but also get a holistic understanding of the quality of your app from your user's point of view? Instabug's lightweight SDK grabs all of the insights you need to build top-quality apps through comprehensive bug and crash reports, performance monitoring, and real-time user feedback, all in just one SDK. With Instabug, you can continuously monitor and measure the performance of your app as perceived by your users. Empower your users to report issues and ask questions seamlessly right from inside your app. Get all of the information you need about bugs, crashes, and other issues, and get them fixed in record time, all with a focus on privacy and security. And you won't need to worry about the hassle of switching to a new tool, because Instabug only takes a minute to integrate with your apps, and it fits right in with your workflow, with support for Jira, Slack, Trello, GitHub, Zendesk, and over 10 other popular tools. Join over 25,000 top mobile developers around the world who use Instabug to ship high-quality apps. Go to try.instabug.com/appstories. Again, that URL to check out Instabug is try.instabug.com/appstories. Our thanks to Instabug for their support of the show.
When you go into your queue, and this is like some of the details that I like about Matter too, you can sort your queue in a variety of ways to make it easy to catch up on what you saved. Because, we all know that we save more than we actually have time to read.
Right.
And Matter is, I think, maybe the first service that tries to practically, very sort of pragmatically speaking, actually handle this. For example, by default, you can sort by, the stuff that you've recently added. But you can also sort by oldest. meaning, hey, let me see the articles that I saved, 3 months ago. Maybe I don't want to read them anymore. You can also shuffle your queue. So it just opens a randomized item at the top. You can also filter your queue by short stories. So if you're like, I want to read something, but I got 10 minutes, what can I read? And that's a nice filter to have. And there's also a filter for in-progress stories. So if you start reading an article, then and another more interesting article comes out and you jump to that, now you have 2 stories in progress, and you can filter your Matter queue to show those 2 in-progress articles. There's also batch operations available now, so you can bulk edit multiple articles at once. So, for example, you can select 2 articles and you could say add a tag or delete just these 2. Or there's also the nuclear option, which is archive all. So if you used Matter last year and then you stop using it, you can go into your queue and you can say archive all, I want to start fresh. And obviously, like what was great about Matter last year is still great now. So, for example, the text parser, really well done. The audio integration with the ability to listen to articles, excellent. I really like the design. I really like the style settings. And I also like the Obsidian integration. There's a plugin made officially by Matter. It's not a fan-made creation. It's an official plugin that syncs your highlights from Matter to Obsidian. So later you can recall some of those articles and those highlights that you saved directly in the app where you're most likely, writing or handling your research. For example, I'm working on my iOS review. Last night, I read a story from TechCrunch about a Craig Federighi interview about Stage Manager. And in my iPadOS chapter for the review, I dropped an internal link to that article that contains the highlights that shows up as a markdown document in my Obsidian library thanks to the Matter integration. So all this to say, Matter 2.0, if you tried it last year where you were turned off by the social integration stuff and, all that layer on top of Matter, like, hey, become an influencer about the stuff you read now. It's, check it out again. It's much cleaner and better now, and the text parser is excellent, and the ability to listen to articles is really useful. And they also launched a web client, and I believe they are going to announce pretty soon, and this is going to be interesting for you, John, RSS integration.
Yes.
So that's going to happen too.
I'm interested to see how RSS goes because my volume of RSS is pretty high compared to what I save. And I don't know that I really want those 2 things combined as much as it sounds good in kind of theory. I think in practice that might be a little rough. I would just add about Matter. I mean, I would echo you on the design. I think the design is really well done. I think it looks really nice both on an iPhone and on especially like my iPad mini. I think it does a nice job of tailoring itself to those individual devices. Those voices that you mentioned that read the stories out aloud, I'm not sure which service they're using, but both Amazon and Microsoft have really good advanced text-to-speech engines now. And I think, as you discovered when you were doing your shortcuts, what Matter is doing is actually converting, probably based on like a popularity index, depending on how many people save things. They're converting that to audio and then saving the audio file, which I assume probably saves them money from an API standpoint with whoever they're using for those voices. But the reality is they're really good, and I expect that maybe what we'll see them do in terms of a business plan would be to roll out more features on the audio side as a subscription. I mean, I personally would like to have like a digest of audio articles, kind of like what you did with Matterpod, but maybe with a little bit of UI, audio UI around them. Like maybe they add in intros and outros to stories, some breaks and other things like that. And I'd love to have CarPlay support because I'm going to be on a long car ride very soon. And there's no good way to play these in the car other than poking at the app, which you probably shouldn't be doing.
The details of that car ride are available in App Stories Plus in the members only pre-show segment where John has a major, it's like I have some personal news time.
Major life news in the pre-show today that will eventually be revealed more broadly. But if you really want to know the finer details and the tech angle of all of that, it's all available if you go to appstories.plus and subscribe to App Stories Plus. Yeah, that was a fun segment.
We found a way to monetize your personal life, John.
That's what Sometimes done. I feel like our entire personal lives are monetized in one way or another, Federico.
Look, there's tons of competition out there, okay? We got to make a living, man.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm right there with you. No, I'm right there with you. This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Revenue Cat. If you're a developer, your time should be spent focused on what makes your app special, not hassling with StoreKit. In-app subscriptions are critical to a lot of apps' success, but getting the infrastructure right is tough. That is, unless you're using Revenue Cat. Revenue Cat is payments infrastructure simplified. You don't have to worry about managing servers or writing complex back-end code. They take care of all of that for you. What's more, Revenue Cat is cross-platform, so when you decide to expand beyond iOS to Android or the web, you can still use Revenue Cat. Revenue Cat lets you sync status across all of your customers' devices, too, and it has terrific out-of-the-box analytics to track your revenue, customer retention, and churn, so you always are on top of how your business is performing. Revenue Cat integrates in-app purchase data with best-in-class tools, too. And it's trusted by over 9,000 apps, including ones like Notion, StockTwits, and the photography app VSCO. Set up Revenue Cat today. Integrating your app will take just hours, not days. So what are you waiting for? Visit RevenueCat.com to learn more today. Again, that URL to learn about Revenue Cat is RevenueCat.com. There'll be a link in the show notes, too. Our thanks to Revenue Cat for their support of App Stories. All right, let me suggest an app myself called Cassette. That's CASET. All right, this is a music app, and I actually happened to run into the developer at a developer meetup at WWDC and was talking to them about the app. This is one that you and I have tried. We've talked about it on Club Mac Stories before. It's for making collaborative playlists, and it's really well done. This is by the same developer as Denim, and Denim, which we've also talked about here and there, is a way to create covers for your playlist. So you could, add images and gradients and other things just to make them look really nice. Well, that technology is kind of baked into Cassette, but it does so much more because Cassette actually lets you build a playlist, share it with a friend, and then work on it together. And it's really well done for something that to me is a fairly complex app, because it doesn't just throw you in and make you create a playlist from scratch all by yourself. I mean, you can do that, and I know we've done that and kind of were testing that when we were testing this out, but it also has a gallery that has some things in it that are free, some things that are part of the Pro subscription. But for instance, there's one called the Starter Kit, which is a way of giving you ideas for mixes you might want to create. That starter kit includes new music mix, a stuck in my head mix, vintage hits, and good vibes. Those are like the 4 starter pack ideas for mixes. And if you go into those, you can tap a button and it'll even give you song suggestions from Apple Music that you might want to add to your mix to get you started and going on this. And, it integrates fully with Apple Music. You can add tracks either by going through your songs, your albums, your artists, or your playlists, which are the main categories in Apple Music, and adding them one by one. And once you have something put together that you're happy with, you can share it using a bunch of different social apps. There's Messages and Messenger and WhatsApp and Instagram. Share it with someone, or you can copy a link and send it to someone another way, and then they can start adding. And as you do this with 1, 2, 3, however many friends you want, they add their songs, you add yours. You can set up notifications so you know when somebody edits it. It becomes kind of a social small group thing. And each of those users who sees something added can react. There's like 5 different like emoticon type reactions that you can enter. So you get some feedback on what you're adding to the playlist too. So you can make it a social thing as well. It supports AirDrop. What else? I think this would be a really good candidate perhaps for SharePlay on messages, in that you could, once you start building a playlist, you could then maybe listen to it together, which would be kind of neat. Right now, I mean, that's an iOS 16 beta feature, but I could see that coming to it. And as I said, there is this pro version where you can get more custom covers and mix templates available for $2 a month or $20 a year. The one thing I would say is I'd like an iPad app, because right now it's iPhone only.
Okay, iPhone only. This looks very cool. And I like that it's from the maker of Denim, which is another favorite of mine.
It really is. We should, I was thinking we should you should install this, and we should work on our 2022 mix again. Because I know we did that a little bit when this app first came out early in the year, but we haven't done it since.
Good idea. All right. We'll check it out.
This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Pillow. More and more studies show that getting a good night's sleep can improve your health and well-being in more ways than you can ever imagine. Pillow is a simple app that helps you be more aware of your sleep patterns and make informed decisions to help improve your sleep quality. All you have to do is wear your Apple Watch while you sleep. Pillow will track and analyze your sleep automatically and give you a full report in the morning. If you want to use Pillow with just an iPad or an iPhone, you can do that too with the touch of a button. If you have an Apple Watch, you can also get important information about your heart rate trend, variability, heart rate dip, and blood oxygen levels for each sleep session. You can even record sounds like sleep talking, sleep apnea, snoring, and other noises that might be affecting your sleep. If your Apple Watch is a Series 6 or newer, Pillow will display information about the intensity of those sounds during each session and give you a full report in the morning. Another valuable aspect of Pillow is helping you make informed decisions to improve your sleep. Pillow comes with a dedicated section where you can discover trends, get personalized insights, sleep tips, and easily compare your sleep metrics with your weight, steps, caffeine consumption, and other health metrics. If you want to wind down and relax before you go to bed or listen to something throughout the night, Pillow comes with an expanding collection of sleep aid sounds, guided meditations, bedtime stories, and music produced specifically for sleep. Naps boost your focus, creativity, and overall well-being. So if you have a chance to take a nap during the day, use Pillow's Power Nap mode. Pillow can wake you up using your iPhone, Apple Watch, or iPad at the lightest possible sleep stage using its smart alarm feature. Starting from watchOS 6, Pillow's battery consumption is minimal too. Last but not least, Pillow is very privacy-minded. All of your sleep and audio data is encrypted and stored on your device and in your iCloud storage account using end-to-end encryption. You don't have to register or create an account to use Pillow either. You can use it anonymously, and it doesn't collect or send your personal data anywhere else. Pillow is free to download from the App Store and comes with a set of great features that you can use every day for free. If you want to try Pillow's premium features, there's also an option to start a 7-day free trial. Just visit pillow.app to get started today. Again, that URL is pillow.app. Our thanks to Pillow for their support of the show.
I also have another music utility for today. This is a totally new app that I just found out about this a couple of days ago because the developer of the app was kind enough to send me an email. And they were like, hey, I'm an indie developer. I make this app and I think it's going to be interesting for you. And I checked it out and it's the kind of thing that clicked right away with me. So
nice.
It's called Drive Play. Okay. So Drive Play is an Apple Music client, but it's specifically optimized for a driving UI, for when you're driving your car. It reminds me of the old, I think it still exists actually, car UI in Spotify. So Spotify for iPhone, it detects when you're connected to a car Bluetooth unit, and it switches the UI of the Spotify app to have bigger, easier, more comfortable controls. Drive Play is that, but it's a standalone third-party app on your iPhone that connects directly to your Apple Music account, thanks to the Apple Music API on iOS. And it lets you play and pause music, obviously, at a very high level. It gives you giant playback controls that are super easy to interact with and to tap without having to carefully look at the screen and therefore take your eyes off the road when you're driving. So at a very high level, that's what it does. But what makes it special and why it clicked with me is the customization of Drive Play. So Drive Play, in addition to the giant playback screen and the comfortable controls, it has these modules that you can access by swiping up on the screen that are called applets. These applets are like mini widgets that are built into Drive Play. You can add up to 5, I think, of these applets, and you can swipe through them with horizontal swipes. They are essentially these cards that you can install. And so you swipe up, you open the cards view, and you swipe horizontally between them. For example, you can have a widget for recently played. So you swipe to that card, and you have these large buttons for all the songs you recently played. You want to play one again, you just tap it. You can have a widget for your favorite contacts. So you're listening to music with Drive Play, okay? But you realize, I need to call, my partner real quick. You can add them as favorite contacts. You swipe without having to exit Drive Play. You swipe to that card, you find the profile picture of that contact, and you tap on it, and you can place a phone call. You can also have applets for the weather and a speedometer that I still gotta try. I'm really curious to see how it works.
Yeah.
I've tried speedometers on the iPhone before, and they were pretty accurate because they're using a combination of GPS and the accelerometer, I think. So I haven't been able to try it yet, but it's in there. Now, the applet that makes it, the reason why I was really interested in Drive Play is the browse screen. So in the browse screen, think of Marvis or Soar, these Apple Music clients that have a customizable homepage. It's that, but like a mini version of it. So in the browse screen, you can have these multiple sections that you can pick and choose, and you can make them big or small, and you can rearrange them vertically. This can be, for example, I added my recently added albums, some of my playlists, and the heavy rotation section from my Apple Music account. I wish, and this is like one of my few requests for now for the developer, I wish that I could add the recently played section of my Apple Music Listen Now page. I know that section is available via the API now because I have it in Marvis, for example. So I know that it's possible. I wish that I could have recently played as well. Oh, and there's also Apple Music Search. So if you want, there's a search button. But the idea is, this is the kind of app that is ideal for users who drive cars that don't have CarPlay, right? If you have CarPlay, I think a lot of the benefits of Drive Play maybe do not necessarily apply. But if you, like me, have a car that has plain old regular Bluetooth that actually sucks because it even doesn't show me album artwork, and it's terrible to use, I very much prefer to use my iPhone as a media control device. I have my iPhone on a Belkin car vent attachment that uses MagSafe. I love that thing, but with the standard music app or Marvis even, they're not optimized for driving. They have these small controls and small text, and I really don't want to squint at the screen when I'm driving, That's why I ask Sylvia to change the music for me occasionally, but it's not ideal. So with Drive Play, I have this car optimized UI, and I can even customize what I see. So this is a very new app, and I think it has a ton of potential. I hope to see more sections become available in the browse screen. And if you don't have CarPlay and you are an Apple Music user and you drive often, I really think you should check this out. It's free, and there's one in-app purchase that is $2, and that's it.
Oh, that sounds really good. One of our cars does not have CarPlay, so this might come in handy.
Yeah.
And, I actually recently bought an iPhone holder for that car.
Yeah.
And I thought about your MagSafe Belkin holder, but unfortunately, Jennifer's phone still doesn't have MagSafe. She's rocking an older phone. And I got one of those ones where you've probably used them before, where you put it in the CD slot and then you kind of twist and it jams itself in there really tight. They don't work that great, especially if you have my big phone in there. It tends to sag after a while because that phone's so heavy. But yeah, this would be perfect for that car.
Yeah.
This episode of App Stories is brought to you by SourceGraph. So you've hired a brilliant developer. That's great, but now you have to get them onboarded. If your company is growing, onboarding new developers will be a common occurrence, but it's a big undertaking. One of the biggest challenges for new hires is to get up to speed on the projects their new teams are working on. This can be tricky if the code base your developers are working are already large. Thankfully, SourceGraph makes it easy to move fast and learn even in big code bases. Developers know that knowledge is most useful when it's findable. Centralization is helpful, but given that most companies store knowledge at least 2 different locations, how do you make knowledge accessible to those who need it? As a code intelligence platform, SourceGraph gives developers what they need to drive their own learning over time and in different situations. Teams that aren't using SourceGraph need to rely on asking colleagues or reviewing out-of-date documentation, which is cumbersome and time-consuming. But with SourceGraph, every single developer can search across millions of repositories to find specific code, saving time for themselves and everyone else. That way, when questions do come up, you know that it's the big stuff that's worthy of your extra time. SourceGraph was created to make developers' lives easier, and today they work with leading companies across every industry, including 3 out of 5 of the top tech companies, plus PayPal, Uber, Plaid, GE, Reddit, and Atlassian. Visit about.sourcegraph.com to learn more. That's about.sourcegraph.com to find out why some of the biggest tech companies in the world use SourceGraph and to see what it can do for yours. Or just click on the link in the show notes to let them know you heard about them from us. Our thanks to SourceGraph for their support of the show. All right, I want to recommend Watch Calendar. Now, if you're a calendar person, you've got fairly limited amount of space that you can show stuff on the watch. But Watch Calendar does really probably the most remarkable job I've ever seen of a watch app of showing lots of different views of a calendar on that tiny screen. And it does so actually remarkably effectively. There's a month view. There's even a week view and a heat map. And the heat map's kind of an interesting one. I think it works particularly well for a watch because you're not going to see, if you're looking at a whole month on the screen of your Apple Watch, there's no way you're going to be able to see the actual events on those individual days. At best, you're going to either be able to see the dates, which are handy to have if you're trying to figure out what a future date is, or you can get this heat map and just get a sense for when you're going to be busy. And it's, they're all color-coded, which is really handy. And then if you tap into a month view, for instance, you can then get a list of events that are upcoming and scroll through it. So there are ways to get to the events, even if you're looking at a view that doesn't necessarily have the ability to show it itself. Now, the app, one of the things that's also nice about this app is it's incredibly customizable. There are complications for really every single watch face on the Apple Watch. So no matter what your favorite watch face is, with Watch Calendar, you can find a complication that will fit. You can also change things like the colors and the typeface styles and things like that in the app itself and the complications. And most recently, they have added widgets on both the iPhone and the iPad. So this is, until this edition, Watch Calendar was strictly an Apple Watch app. And you would install it and you would just work, either set up, some of the details in the iOS app or on the watch itself. And that was it. But with this most recent edition, there are a whole series of widgets available that you can use on the iPhone, which is great because, I think even on an iPhone, some of those smaller widgets are a little constrained. And as a result, having gone through the process of trying to fit calendar information on the small screen of the Apple Watch, the developer has done a great job of translating that directly to the small and medium widgets on an iPhone or iPad. And so if you've tried a bunch of calendar widgets, and there are some good ones. I mean, I think I personally am partial to the Apple one, although Fantastical has a pretty nice one as well. But if you're not really satisfied with those and you're looking for something a little different and maybe a little more customizable, Watch Calendar is a great way to go. They even have this feature that's called scenes, which are a lot like themes that give you, how you really go about customizing and getting different looks. There are 10 of them, and so they're kind of pre-configured for you to look nice on the Apple Watch. So if you use your calendar a lot and feel dissatisfied with what's available on the watch, this is a good place to look. I think it's a $4 app.
Oh, this is very nice. I think I've seen this before.
I've written about it at least a couple of times.
In Mac Stories Weekly, right? I think
yep.
Yeah. That's why. Yeah, very nice. Okay.
Including, I think, last week about the widgets, because the widgets are very, very new. Those just came out recently.
They added widgets, and they came. Yeah, that's why I the icon is green with the icon of a calendar on top of it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I remember that.
Speaking of updates, going back to your Matter recommendation, I just noticed that they added an update for importing your Instapaper and Pocket library. So if you've been using one of those apps for a lot of years and want to continue using those articles that you've saved in those apps, you can bring those over to Matter now as well, which I know is important to a lot of people. All right, the final app, Federico, I want to talk about is one that actually I think you turned me on to this several weeks ago. It's called Quick Capture. Mm-hmm. And this is an incredibly simple app. Don't think I have a lot to say about it. It does remind me a lot of Drafts 1.0 because the whole idea is just to capture text. It doesn't have any kind of file structure or saved documents or anything like that. All it is a text field, and you can enter text into it in 3 ways. You can type on the keyboard, obviously. You can dictate text into the field, or you can use live text by tapping on the video button, and that opens up a little calendar view in what would otherwise be the keyboard space at the bottom of the screen, and then capture your text that way. And then you can kind of move between each of the methods if you want. You can start by typing, then you can capture a little something with live text, then you can dictate. You can mix and match it. Once you have the text that you want, there is a share button, and you go to the share sheet, and you can share it to any other app that accepts plain text. It's really all there is to it, but it is really a really neat app. Now, you might think, well, I could do this with shortcuts. And yes, you could. You could do all these things with shortcuts. It does have the advantage, I think, of being a little faster, though, because it's a native app that you just tap it, it opens right up, and you're ready to go. So I've used it on and off. I don't use it all the time, but when I know I'm going to be somewhere and I might have to jot something down really quickly, like when I was at WWDC, I've used that, for instance. I mean, I can quickly open it, write down a note, take a picture of some text, whatever it happens to be, and then shoot it off to Obsidian or to a text message or an email, whatever it happens to be, and be done with it. So that's my pick, Quick Capture.
Very nice. I really like this utility as well, and it does remind me of Drafts 1.0. So I think, and maybe I'm biased, but I think we have a pretty solid selection on this episode. It's fun to do these episodes again. So it was John's idea. So thank you, John, for having this idea for this episode. I love picking third-party apps.
I know. We'll have to do it again over the summer. I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to do it. Mm-hmm. And, stay tuned, too, because we're going to be kicking off our summer OS preview series very soon. Federico and I are in the midst of planning that. We have some ideas. We'll have interviews on App Stories. We'll have lots of things on the website, too. So that'll be coming very soon as we get our ducks in a row and get organized. I want to thank our 4 sponsors for this episode. That's Instabug, Revenue Cat, Pillow, and SourceGraph. You can find me and Federico over at MacStories.net. Federico is also at Viticci on Twitter and Instagram. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHN VOORHWS. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.